Are live. I think we're live. Welcome everybody. Sorry I keep pushing these to the very last second of the month, but
No big deal.
that deadline is a real motivator. So, but welcome. I thank you guys for the support. And let's just jump into whatever you guys want to talk about again. So, any subjects you want to roll with or questions you have, feel free to anyone jump in. Oh, and sorry, everyone watching online, welcome to the Patreon only video call. This is a monthly video call I do for my patrons. So if you want to be a part of this, please become a patron. And I have a special offer this month where I'm giving away. I'm going to be giving away Phobos #2. So I haven't promoted it at all. I shouldn't even do these things if I'm not going to promote them. But this is my promotion. So head on over to Patreon if you want Phobos #2. I'll print it and send it to you. And now let's jump into the meat of it. Okay, you guys, go for it.
So I have a question.
Yes.
For everyone. So when anyone is working on your comic, I'm curious if you're working on one stage at a time. So for instance, if you're going through and you're sketching your comic, getting it all done, then going through and then inking it all colors, or are you breaking up in chunks? Are you doing a page at a time? What's a method that you guys prefer?
Yeah, well, I'll just start real quick. I do it in chunks. So I like to do a block of thumbnails, like maybe 10 or 20 pages at a time. And I usually like to pencil and a group of pages at a time, maybe 10, 5 or 10, not in one day, but in a sitting. So it will within a week or something. Same with inking, just because every time I switch gears, my brain has to kind of readjust to what I'm doing, especially when it's like coloring and stuff. I have to really kind of just get into a coloring mode, and it's a different way of working. Some things, whether it's writing or penciling, I can't have a lot of like talking in the background, so I don't listen to podcasts or anything like that. But a lot of times I'll have quiet for that, so it's like different things require different kinds of focus. And so I tend to do it in blocks, groups of a specific task for so many pages, and then I'll move on to another task for a group of pages. So anyone else? Special techniques out there?
I do it fairly similarly. I do it in blocks like you do, about 5 to 10 pages, usually I rough, then I go back and pencil them and kind of color and go for.
Yeah. I know it seems like there's a lot of webcomics that do it all in one day. So, I just can't think that way though, because it's too, I'm thinking of more of the sequence than what's just happening on one page. And so that's another reason I do it in a big chunk, is because I can take in the whole sequence and see how the sequence is going to play out, instead of just like what's happening in this panel on this day and then finishing it and then publishing it, But yeah, a lot of webcomics seem to do that. They seem to do it well. I don't know how you do it that well, but
I was starting doing the comic by blocks, maybe 10 pages or so, and that's this is not working for me. So I was moving for doing all the story with a little script, bullet points mostly, and now I'm doing the sketches, and I think it worked very very well for me, because I think in terms of productivity, it's really nice, very, very fast, very quick for me doing it with big blocks. I'm doing the script, finish the script, forget the script.
Yeah,
I already have it. Sketch everything, put everything in the timeline. I'm thinking in timeline because I'm mostly an animator, and it's my workflow. So, and it's working very pretty good for me. Mostly I can do maybe 2 pages or 3 by a day, maybe.
Okay.
And for me, it's better doing it for big blocks,
Yeah.
not little chunks.
Like the
Big
whole
blocks.
issue or,
Yeah.
the whole story. Yeah.
Yeah, it's working really great for me, though.
That's cool. Yeah. I had to write the whole script for the shapes book that I'm working on before I started working on thumbnails, just to get it, like you were saying, to be like, I'm done with this. Get it out of my mind now, because the art is a whole nother thing to, just take over all your brain power. So
Absolutely.
I can relate to that.
Well, and it makes sense because otherwise, if you are writing the script and then you find like, oh, here's a change I want to make, and then it's going to affect all the art. So if you do the art and then make some changes, you're going to have to redo all that art.
Yeah. And that's not to say you don't, like even if you write all the script, you do go back and make changes and tweaks. I turned in the first issue finally of Shapes 1, and it's all colored and everything. And there's still like a couple parts. I'm like, I just emailed him a couple days ago. I was like, wait, don't send it to the letterer yet. I need to fix something. There's 2 scenes. So
Absolutely.
Now, Jason, was it you that were saying that you did the dialogue after you did the art? Well, I can't remember.
Well, yeah, a lot of times I do on my own stuff, like the stuff that no one else has to approve. I tend to favor that because then I can really focus on making the art really powerful.
This is a video call. I just the signal.
His screen is really colorful. Jason, I just muted you, by the way. Sorry. You can unmute when you want to talk. I heard that also, like it was like kind of like a Stan Lee method. Like he would have artists draw all the pages and then he would write the dialogue for what the artist drew or something. It was something like that. And I think Mike Mignola does it with Hellboy, or did it with Hellboy. And when I learned that years ago, I just was like, well, okay, I'll embrace that, because it seemed like it was kind of my natural technique to just focus on the art first. I had the ideas and the story and the points and the conversations, like what I wanted to get across, but I just didn't have it, finessed. And I realized that a lot of times when I would draw those pages, it would change the dynamic of the word balloons and who would be saying what. And maybe this panel, the character looked a little bit more mad than inquisitive or something. And so it would just change the flow of how I would want them to speak and after I finished the art. So a lot of times I started just saving it till the end, and it tended to work out really well, as long as I had the general idea of what I wanted them to say. I mean, and sometimes, the general idea is really working it a lot and working it and reworking it and reworking it. But then, I throw myself into the art and just work on the art, and then I come back at the dialogue again and see how it fits, But yeah, it's pretty much one of the last things I really touch. In most cases, in the case that I'm on now, the Shapes comic, I did figure it out really early, which is really unusual. And I didn't think I would be able to think that way, but for whatever reason, I was able to think that way. I think it's because it's a commissioned job, And it's like, I want to get the conversations and all that stuff approved before I go to art, because I don't want to waste time redoing stuff. So,
but you wouldn't hash that out in the thumbnail stage, because I would imagine, being the author and the illustrator gives you a lot more power in your hands. So it just seems so strange that you'd make art, and then if the dialogue changes, you wouldn't figure that out in the thumbnail stage?
That's just it. The thumbnail phase is kind of where most of the magic happens, in figuring out and realizing what dialogue is going to go where. It's the place where you can kind of start trimming the ideas that are in your mind, you know, for the dialogue. And then you can make little notes like, oh, it'd be cool if I could add this little line here. So I might just write that in, you know, on the side of the thumbnail, like, what are you doing? You know, that goes perfect with this frame, you know. And then when it comes time to clean it up, you know, I usually kind of reassess, like, do I have any notes like of ideas for dialogue, like that I want to, you know, really force in here again, or force in here better. And if not, then I usually just kind of go, okay, well, I kind of trust that I'm hitting the right beats from those thumbnails. But yeah, again, it's in the thumbnail world that a lot of that is figured out. And a lot of it's just like, I need room for this kind of conversation to happen, you know? So let's give a lot of space. And I know they're going to go through these like emotions during this conversation. So as long as I have panels that have a lot of space reserved for where the dialogue is going to be, and I'm hitting these emotions with their expressions, then I know I can do it. And every now and then I have to add something, or I have to take something away, or I have to add a new spread or a new page because it's just not lining up right with the dialogue, you know. But it's rare, because I kind of have the general mood and tone and you know, what hurdles they're trying to cross in the conversation in mind when I'm drawing those thumbnails, you know. And then it's just finessing it after that. Once you actually put those words in, it's really finessing it, and it's kind of a different thing you're focusing on, I think, once you get the pages drawn and you're trying to just figure out how to make the wording work right, you know, within the scene and the shot, and matching the characters and the expressions and all that stuff. It makes it sound so complicated. I don't feel like it's complicated though, because I want to say that it's way more simple than it seems like it is, you know. As long as you have kind of your general conversation in mind, because you know what you want the characters to be battling with if there's an argument. And then you just need to give them the right expressions, make sure the layout's beautiful in that thumbnail, and give enough space so that you can have that kind of conversation in there, right?
Yeah, that's fine.
And then worry about that conversation when it comes to you actually putting in those word balloons.
Yeah.
You know?
As a person who's been neck deep in Jason's pages for a month or two, I have to say he really lets the characters and the situations breathe on the page. There's a lot of white space there and stuff too. So,
yeah,
I mean, you can really adapt the dialogue and add more or subtract. It's not like, oh, I left this itty bitty corner where I'm gonna put the dialogue, and then you want to expand it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's really a beautiful, open storytelling. So,
and yeah, Nick's right. With my own stuff, I go that way because I want it to be more open and, you know, negative space and breathing room. Whereas like the comic I'm working on, Shapes, there's no way I could get away with doing it that way, because every panel has to have this explanation of this one little thing in it, and it's just dense, you know. And so it took me really long to thumbnail those pages, because I was like looking at my script and the pages, and I'm just trying to like hammer it all together, and it just took a lot of time. And I think the end result looks good, but it's not as fluid and natural as the stuff that I really enjoy doing, you know. I didn't enjoy the execution of it as much that way, you know. Yeah, it's just more about like, let's make a beautiful piece of art, make sure we hit the emotions, and then we can kind of play Tetris with the dialogue in there, you know, as long as it, at the end of the day, it reads right, you know. So it doesn't mean I nail it the first time either when I'm in that dialogue form, in that dialogue mode. You know, again, a lot of the time that's where the writing happens, you know. and really, like, what gave me confidence to keep pursuing it in that way and doing it that way is just hearing a lot of these great Marvel artists, and not even Marvel artists, but just great comic artists have done it that way, and it works great, you know. It worked for them, so I figured I might as well embrace it a little bit, and I've just really enjoyed it that way. So, but that's not to say it's for everybody either, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
and what you were talking about, I think they call the Marvel method, where Stan Lee was theoretically writing like 50 comics at the same time. So he gave his artists a loose plot, and they drew the whole story, and then, yeah, he came back and added the dialogue afterwards.
Yeah.
So really, the artists were contributing a lot more to the story than they got credit for.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that method allows the artist to really experiment and have fun with it, you know, which is what it always was for me. And so that's why I was always kind of like, I don't want to turn it into like a paint by numbers type situation for a comic. And I think that's why I'm always so hesitant to be like, I mean, I don't know, things might change, but up until this point, I've always been like, I don't want to get a job where I'm drawing someone else's comic that's been written, especially where they like panel 1, the character is looking over his shoulder, you know, and because it's like I don't have any room to explore and just draw cool stuff, you know. I can but it's very specific, and so it kind of sucks the life and the joy out of creating it, you know. And if the creation process is not enjoyable, then I just don't want to do it, especially for personal stuff, you know. It's one thing to get a job. You have to do stuff you don't want to do a lot of times, most of the time. And, you know, it's like, okay, yeah, these things just need to be done. But, and that's kind of become an interesting situation now that my hobby has turned into the job. It's like I'm still trying to keep it like it's a hobby so that I can still find the same joy out of it, and so I can so that so it can still be as enjoyable for other people to see. Because I think if it turned into a burdensome job in the process, then it wouldn't be as enjoyable to look at either. You know, people would see it in art. So anyway, that's a detour.
No, that's really helpful. It's actually really freeing because it's more of an organic approach, especially if your strong suit is as an artist. And it's interesting because when you look at any resource online, it's like how to make a comic. Well, you first write the script, then you write all the dialogue, then you make the art. And it's like you said, it's very it works well for some people, but it can be very constrictive.
Yeah.
So
a lot of times those formulas though are made for like someone who just doesn't, maybe someone who like doesn't know anything, you know, about, they're trying to learn how to draw, they're trying to learn how to write.Maybe they're putting a team together to start a comic company, you know, and they need all the pieces. And so it works in a situation where it's like, okay, I have an idea. I want to hire a writer, and now I need to hire a penciler. And then what do you need next? Inker? Okay, hire an inker, you know. It works fine for that kind of situation. But for people like us, where it's like we're the whole package, you know, we're wearing all the hats. It's really a completely different approach because there's just a lot of different reasons and motivations behind it, you know. And, you know, a lot of times the traditional ways, the ways that are laid out for everybody to do it who have no idea how to do it, if you do that, it takes a lot longer than if, you know, like artists like us, we can figure out what our strengths and weaknesses are, and let's just abandon completely the weaknesses and just focus completely on the strengths and the things we love, and boom, we'll get it done 5 times faster, and it'll be better. It'll be completely different looking, but it'll be better, you know. So so a lot of those sites, especially where they're like, this is how you do this, you know, it's like it's geared to someone who's just not even in that world. It's probably written by someone who's not even in that world.
And it helps guide like basic. Here's where you start guidelines. But like you said, as an independent artist, where you're wearing all the hats, you really find the method that works for you. And there's no written manual because it's going to be different for everyone. And I agree with you. Art is more of my focus, and I really believe that like a facial expression can drive a scene. And so I think it depends on your inspiration, what comes to you. It depends on the scene. Like for instance, there's some scenes that, the dialogue will just start playing out in my head like a movie, and I'll just write it all down. Other scenes, I might actually have to start thumbnailing or drawing the expressions, and then I'll know what the characters are saying. So thank you. That's really freeing.
Yeah, good.
It just seems so opposite, but I mean, it really makes sense.
Yeah, it really does seem opposite. I mean, it would, if in a movie production, of course, you have to approve the script first, and then, you have all these people that you're paying, and, but for us, it's like, it's you kind of got to experiment to realize what direction you want to go sometimes. And, it's a whole different world.
Which is freeing and also very aggravating at times when you're like, I don't know where to go.
Yeah. It's tricky. It's tricky because, you get to do what you want to do, but also the weight of the whole thing is then on your shoulders. And if it failed, it's because you did it wrong. But at the same time, it's like we all want to do it our way. So why do it someone else's way when you have a chance to do it your way, And
I like what you said about, I think one thing that's helped me more recently is just really identifying your strong suits and what you enjoy doing, and really seeing like, well, how can I mold it around that? Rather than trying to do it the way that someone says. So that way you can really then eliminate the parts that aren't serving you. Yeah.
Make it a big experiment, a big fun, go back to when you were a kid. What did you do for fun and why did you do it? And you focused on fun, right? And if it wasn't fun, you wouldn't want to do it.
Yeah. I had an art teacher say that your first audience was you. And I love that because, I mean, you made it for yourself. You made it because it was fun. And I think it's really tricky because, especially for a job, if you're doing art for a job or just trying to pursue a goal and complete a project, it's the balance of, you got to have fun while doing it. Otherwise it becomes drudgery, and it comes through in the art as well.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Jason?
Yeah.
I'll throw my 2 cents in on this. I come from more of like animation, but I did a comic book that ended up being 80-page graphic novel. And I did everything, the whole thing, like lettering, coloring, everything. And one thing that I kind of did from start to finish was like first 20-page book that I did was I scripted the whole thing out. Like, everybody tells you to do. And that is like very tedious for me. And you get all the dialogue in there and everything. But by the second book, what I did was I kind of did away with that. And I did everything in like I built an 11 by 17 inch page that was just thumbnails. So you put all 20-page thumbnails on there. And before I even like did the actual thumbnails, it's almost like a pre-thumbnail. So like what I did was I decided, okay, on page 7 or 8, I want to have a splash page. And I just write splash like underneath the thumbnail. And then I would say like, okay, maybe 2 panels here, 4 panels here, and kind of lay out the whole 20-page book. And then I would go inside the thumbnail, and instead of drawing at this stage, I would just write like a few words, like, 2 shot, and then maybe the 2 characters that are in it or something like that. Very, very basic. Kind of land, I would like print that out, and then I would do another with like tiny little sketches of what's actually in that thumbnail. Then the third stage is blow those thumbnails up to something bigger where I can get a little more detail, and then take that to penciling and inking. And then at the very end, I would come through at this finished book that was colored and everything, and throw in the word bubbles like in InDesign is where I would do it. Just do like a layer on top of the art, and then literally write the dialogue just by looking at the art. So like I wouldn't even write the dialogue until the very, very end. And that's totally the opposite of how I started with my first book. So I don't know if it helps anybody, but it was almost like doing a pre-thumbnail page helped me like wrap my head around at least that portion of the book. Like it ended up being 80 pages, but I would do it 20 pages at a time. And that second, third, and fourth book, that's the process that I did. I never went back to writing the script.
Yeah, yeah. I think part of it comes with just confidence, you know, like once you've done it a couple times, you get the confidence in how to tell a story visually. And so you're not as nervous about moving forward with it, you know? And now Ruben, now you're saying you want to write the script first, and I, you know, like I wrote all the script for Shapes. So I'm not saying you're not confident, because there's different ways to work. But, you know, honestly, you know, I wasn't confident either with the whole writing a story for someone else to approve. So part of the, you know, there would have been a horrible back and forth if I wouldn't have done it. So yeah, I was a little nervousness, not being confident in my writing to get approved. But if I would have done it just for myself and nobody to approve it, I would have just like had a thumbnail list probably and just dove straight into art, you know, kind of like what I do with Phobos and Remind and Citra and everything else I'm working on that's not being paid for.
I'm writing the simple plot, all the simple plot, but the dialogue, it's going to be the last thing.
Oh, really? Okay. So we're kind of all in that same boat then.
Yeah. Yeah, I think. I think.
Except for me at this current stage on the project I'm working on. I'm going against my advice and what everyone else is doing here.
You are going to throw me.
If I don't write a script, if I just write an outline.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny. Okay.
I think it's a visual thinking, doing it that way. So first think on the image, the action that take every page, and the argument, the plot, and for the last you take all the personality of the characters and things like that. I think it's an anime. It's like, I think it's like a motion graphic piece. It's treated like that, where you put the music at the end of the sound effects and something like that. So you have all the all the story, but you put the last, how do you say, the last things, the tiny characters for the characters.
Yeah, you know, in a way, you just made me realize it's kind of like you could write a script for an actor, but until you actually film the actor and get his or her acting and their version of it, you won't know what's going to go into that final edit. And so it's almost like you're doing the acting, like you're waiting for the acting to be done, which is the finished art.
Yeah,
you know.
That's kind of a cool way to, if you think of your characters as actors and you're the director pitching the script to them, even if you have maybe like the first line of a scene, they're like, okay, here's your line, they say it, and then you can start seeing it play through, you know, how they respond and start thumbnailing it down as you go. But having kind of like that little pilot light of like maybe a first line or first couple lines, and then letting it just evolve naturally.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I see some new faces. Hey, is it Dama? Is that how you say your name?
Dama-chan. It's my nickname.
Okay. Well, welcome.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Hi.
And there was another guy. Oh, he must have left. He wasn't impressed. Okay. Oh, there's Art of Carlos. I don't see a face. I only see a thumbnail. Yeah?
Since we're kind of on the line talking a little bit about stages, I'm also, again, for anyone, I'm curious to see what is everyone's favorite stage. So if you enjoy sketching the most, or inking, or coloring, and what is something that is just difficult, a challenge. So, and I'll kind of start by saying right now I'm wrapping up inking a 30-page introduction comic to my graphic novel. And I thought, I was like, oh, inking's going to be a breeze. I just did all the artwork. And it's actually been kind of stressful because I'm like, these are the final lines. And, I have to get this expression. It's no longer a sketch. So I'm very excited to soon be at the end of inking. I'm sure then I'm going to fall into coloring and being like, oh, I want inking again. But what about you guys? What's something fun, enjoyable, and what's a challenge?
Well, for me, I've been writing it actually, as he was saying before. I've been writing it straight up for a year because a year ago I saw this video of a 100-day project. I think it was Will Terry. Oh my gosh, I hope I'm saying it right.
Yeah.
And I got so inspired that I'm like, no, I'm gonna write it down. Every day I took like 2 hours writing it. Sometimes I have to find the words because English is my second language and I'm writing it in English. So I'm like, yeah, double challenge. And I discovered that I actually enjoyed writing. I never thought of it. I really thought it was like drawing, drawing flowers, everything about it. But no, like writing has been like, it opened my mind more actually. And I've been writing it like in my mind, I'm done. It's been a year, it's all written down. And now that I'm drawing the characters, like the scenes, sorry, the characters are done, but the scenes, I'm imagining more like, I shouldn't say episodes, like more storyline, and I'm writing it, I'm like, holy cow, I will never gonna finish this thing. I need to stop adding more and just freaking draw already. And it's been just, I'm struggling because I've been putting more like more plots, more enemies, more twist things, and sometimes I get inspired even for watching trailers. I was like, I like the monster. What about if he has more legs and he looks more scary? Oh yeah, this will be excellent for my and it's been just so difficult to put it down. Like, you don't know how much struggle I have right now drawing. So I live in LA, by the way. So what I have done is like, I'll go to sketch groups. I've been looking them from Facebook and Instagram, meetups, and I've been going. And I have learned like other methods. I have met a lot of like inspired artists that I follow on Instagram. And it's like, oh, great, hands and feet again. No. And I did this stupid challenge of Ahmed Aldoro. And I did like 500 hands and feet. And I'm done with it. And now I'm going to concentrate on this. And I want to write more. And it's just I'm being a mess this past 5 months. And so far, I don't even have like I don't even have 20 pages just for tell you this.
Yeah.
So the struggle for me is just being so real. If somebody have an opinion, go for it. I'm ready.
Are you doing your whole comic right now? Is that what you're working on?
That's what I'm planning, at least to have the first 3 how can I put it? At least I want to do like 60 pages.
Okay.
It's only me. And I'm trying to do it like as simplify the drawings, because before it was so complicated. I feel like 2 pages like, oh, holy cow, no, forget about it. This is only one person. We're going to make the drawings like more simplified.
Mm-hmm.
And the backgrounds are not going to be as detailed as before. And I hate drawing cards. Like, oh, me. And there's some fighting scenes like, I'm like, what I was thinking. I was drunk when I wrote this stuff or what? Yeah.
I think we all feel you. We all are in that place at one point or another. I will say one thing, and this has just been working for me. It's been nice being able to And I don't know if you've done any other comics prior to this, but one of the reasons I chose to do a 30-page introduction, I'm calling it introduction as of now, is not only it gives me a chance to really explore the character and really try out what I plan on doing for the graphic novel on a much smaller scale. And so I found that, you know, when I started this, my inking has changed to the end. And I found out, you know, okay, of course, I hate drawing environments, but I found ways of doing that better. I found out just shortcuts. I discovered a lot about my process without the daunting task of like, I have to do my whole graphic novel. I can really just break it down in something smaller and just kind of test run a bunch of things. So not saying that's what you need to do, you know, because at the same time, it's a comic, but it might help you explore, you know, what works well. Not only that, but then it really drives you to be like, you know what, this is not perfect, this page, but I'm going to move on. And I actually had it where I try to get one page inked a day and just keep moving. If I didn't finish a page, just move on to the next, you know, if I had time at the end of the day, I'd finish it. And it just helped me make more of a quantity rather than quality, because I know I can come back and fix it. And it's I love making a beautiful, detailed scene where you can just sink into and enjoy all the details. But the tricky thing about comics is that comes as the story collectively. So you can put those details in, but you kind of have to realize that you have to kind of keep going. Otherwise, you're never going to get past those first 2 pages.
I know.
And it's a really hard thing to do, because I love, you know, sinking in all these details, but I'm finding that I am becoming faster. So but maybe something at a smaller scale might help you just at least build the confidence to be able to know, like, okay, I can do this. Maybe, you know, it takes me this amount of time to do it, but now I know on a smaller scale of what I can apply to my actual comic.
Yeah. I can relate to you, Dama, on the writing. I've really found a lot of joy in writing, especially as I've been kind of forced to do it more. Just that the initial like brainstorming and coming up with ideas and the plot twists and the characters and the arcs, it's just really enjoyable. I think my least favorite part is the thumbnailing, which is really similar to storyboarding, and I think that's probably why I don't enjoy it as much. It's such a critical part, but I just don't.
I'll be right back. I'm sorry.
Thumbnails and storyboards is such a critical part, but it's just like sometimes it's like pulling my hair out, like to get it done. And then I love the inking. I think inking is probably one of my favorites. I think it's because most of the art has been figured out and the thumbnails have been figured out, and it's just kind of polishing it up more, you know.
You've probably discussed this before, but do you write an outline or a script first?
Yeah, usually the current project I'm working on now, I've been hired to do it. So I wrote the whole script. I started with the outline, and then I did a whole script, like what the characters say, everything, just to get it approved before I started working on it. But my natural way of doing it for my own work, for Phobos and Thithra and Remind and other projects, is for me to just do more or less a bullet point list of the ideas, the main concepts, the main turning points, the main things that need to happen to move the story forward, and, you know, main emotional beats too. And then focus on the thumbnails, and then I write the dialogue all last. And we were just discussing that here. Like, everyone kind of writes the dialogue at the very end once they finish their coloring and everything, which is I think it's a product of author artists, you know, doing their own work. I think that's just kind of, it comes naturally, I think, to us. You know, if it's a writer hiring an artist to do their work, you have to write it all out. You know, if it's a company, you have to approve it before it goes to art. So you have to get it all written out. But us who have the burden of having to write it and draw it all ourselves because we've chose to go this route. say burden, but I mean that sarcastically. I kind of wouldn't want it any other way, but yeah, it's like, you know, we're able to like dive into the world and just try to get a feel for it and fall in love with the art and the characters, and then, you know, see what floats to the top. And I don't know, it's all a big experiment, so it's a little different process. But welcome, by the way, Fitz Factor. I've never seen you here.
Yeah. Hi. This is my first month, and it's 11 p.m. here, or 12 a.m. Yeah, I live in Singapore.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool. We got people all around the world.
It's pretty fun.
Well, good. Well, thanks for joining. So the conversation is just kind of like whatever we want to talk about, whatever you guys want to, if you have questions for me or questions for the group, or if you just want to talk about a certain subject, it's just open. So whatever you guys want to, however you want to go. All right. Anyone else?
Going with the idea of like what you like the least, what you like the best. I tend to prefer inking the best, and I also hate doing layouts.
Yeah, I can relate.
I kind of enjoy the layouts in some ways because it's like putting a puzzle together and finding out what works.
Yeah.
And I actually like thumbnailing because that's when I sometimes get like the first visual feedback to be like, oh, I actually start seeing the characters. So
Yeah. Now,
I think
I'm not
I
saying thumbnails.
myself for the art and ink, so I'm working on just being able to lessen that to enjoy it more.
Yeah, I think the thumbnails is the most important and where all the magic happens.
Mm-hmm.
But so I agree that's where it's at. It's just like that's the hardest part for me to sit down and.
I completely agree with that too. I find I get lazy sometimes with my art because I don't vary it enough, and that's my issue. One of the reasons why I hate laying things out is because I find I will get lazy from time to time.
Yeah.
And the thumbnail stage definitely takes the most brain power.
Yeah.
Sure, you know?
Oh, definitely.
Gotta turn off all the music and all the. You know.
I think inking is. I like it less than thumbnailing because it's one step. It's the same reason why I don't like painting that much, which is like I feel like I've already done the image, and I'm having to do the image for the third time. So when I ink, it's like I've already drawn this, but I just need to draw it better. And so at that point, it's like it's just work.
Yeah, I can understand that. That's where coloring is for me. I think if I were to take on another project like the one I have where I've commissioned to do it, I think I would turn down coloring. I would just say we need to find someone else to color it because it's just, I think that's harder than thumbnails at this phase for me because thumbnails is that initial first spark and ideas and concepts, but coloring, it's like you've seriously like thumbnailed and drawn it and then inked it and then you're coloring it. It's like, how many more times do I need to come at this thing?
What more do you ask? And in the color stage and the shading it and the values can really make or break a piece, you know?
Yeah. And I think part of the reason why I chose to do Phobos was because it's like, it's kind of coloring, but it's not really. I don't have to think about the whole light spectrum of all the colors. I can focus on the thing that I love the most. And seriously, okay, now I realize the thing that I really, really, really love is just lighting something. It's just like so amazing to me, like to have everything done and then just hit like light layers on stuff or shadow passes on things. It's like, oh, it's the best in the world. You know, like that's what I love. And I think that's what makes my coloring look good is just the lighting pass. It's not really the colors. It's just, oh, that's a cool beam of light.
Yeah, it's all about the value. I mean, colors, you know, we can do without, but it's really about the value. And I feel like at that point, all that hard work really starts paying off and you really get to see it all come together. And it's interesting because I think all of us can relate maybe the reason why inking stage has been a little frustrating is because it looks really good with my sketches underneath, but as soon as I hide that layer, it's just these naked lines. And I know it's going to look better once I start doing value shading, but I find I have to kind of push through that part where it looks kind of an ugly stage and just have faith that it's gonna get better. But and that's why I like, when we're talking about doing things in chunks, it's good to keep that that stage of focus where you're in that groove and you ink a bunch, you color or you sketch or whatever, but short enough where then you can kind of throw yourself a bone and then start coloring these and seeing everything come together and feel like, okay, it is working.
So you're saying when you take off the sketches, your inks, you have trouble being happy with your inks?
It takes away some of the value.
Interesting.
And the
what would you think about leaving your sketches as part of the finished product? It's just another part of the finished art. Would that be a possibility?
It is in some places, possibly. Other places, because sometimes what I've found is it's hard for me to draw everything out on one page. So I've actually done one drawing here, one here, and then I put it all together in Photoshop. So it's just pretty messy. What I have started to do is, as I've inked, I've started to adopt a little bit of cross hatching and really playing with the line weight, so if I have like a hand resting on the ground, instead of just doing the bare lines, I would actually thicken the lines and maybe do a little cross hatching underneath the hands just to give it a little more body. And I'm not doing all the inks, all the shading in the inking stage, but just enough to kind of give me a push into the colors. It's something I'm trying. I've been seeing Ethan Nicole Xcop, I think. Yeah, so he does a little bit of that. Even I don't know the artist, but you're familiar with the Bible Project, how you can see certain places where they add a little more blacks and just enough to anchor the line work, and that's helped a lot. So that's helped me enjoy the inking stage a lot more. So it'll be interesting to see what it looks like with colors.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Jason, sorry I keep muting you.
So muted.
Just wanted to let you know that's me. That's
there's
me.
Some weird. I know because there's some like weird people passing by and like saying good morning and stuff. I know. Yeah, that's okay. Hey, I had something I wanted to say. If I can be really meta, bring us into the realm of the total weird. I think it's interesting you guys talking about earlier. You said about acting, like comparing the art to like acting, because like when I was reading different scholars or whatever, there's a lot of people who kind of had this idea that art, especially in comics, is like an embodiment of the artist, and I think it's interesting because these where you got like the cross between the words and the visuals and different art forms, like the Chinese also in calligraphy, they believe, and in their landscape.
Oh. No, it's just getting deep.
That just happened.
Jason, we'll have to come back to your thought, okay?
Yeah, press pause.
Right now you're paused somehow.
What I've been having problems too is when there is like more than 2 characters in the same panel. Maybe it's a group of 4 people like brainstorming, drawing it. And man, perspective for me, like not perspective, sorry, but like seeing the measure of each person is like, oh, he's taller, she's shorter. It's been a headache.
Yeah. So like organic perspective, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you have a handle on perspective for non-organic stuff?
You know what? I've been working on it.
Yeah. Because if you can, there's a great book, and I think you can get it online, by Andrew Loomis, and it's a really, really, really old one, but it breaks down perspective is how I learned it. And one of the part of it is humans in perspective. And it's just like, but what was so interesting to me is like, once you learn the basics of perspective, you can throw organic stuff into it really easily. I mean, it obviously takes a little bit more brain power because it's all these curves and stuff, but yeah, just look up an Andrew Loomis book on perspective, and you can most likely just find a PDF of it online because it's really old. It's out of copyright.
Okay.
It's brilliant. It's so good.
Huh.
Anyway.
And if you're drawing, if the characters are in a scene, you can also sort of hitchhike off of objects or buildings in that scene to sort of compare, how tall or big they should be. And I don't know what program you use, if you use like Clip Studio or if you're drawing this by hand. Clip Studio. What? Procreate. Okay, maybe they have this feature, but flipping the canvas will help you also. Any of those errors will pop out, and you'll be able to easily adjust them, or letting it sit overnight, coming back the next morning, and then having fresh eyes.
Yeah, that helps.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, drawing people in perspective is very important, but it's still a little less, in my opinion, less noticeable than if you draw like a building or something geometric out of perspective. That really is pretty blatant, but people, sometimes you can fudge it a little bit. So it's still hard. I feel you.
Yeah.
I thought Jason was back, but then he just left.
Yeah, he left a message.
That'll be for the next conversation.
Oh yeah. Well, all right. Anyone else want to take over?
This is why I'm using a 3D program for doing perspective and landscapes. It's made my life so easy.
What program is that you're using?
Cinema 4D.
Sorry?
Cinema 4D.
Okay.
Because has material to put on the 3D stuff. It's called Sketch and
Shader? Is it?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, it's called Sketch and Tune. So you can put lines with noise, with you can do it with thin lines in some parts that are on the distance and something like that, and putting a layer on top, doing a drawing. I'm feeling really comfortable doing it in that way, and absolutely really, really fast, because you only have to put the cameras and adding some little stuff for making really good to the eyes.
Well, it's definitely helpful for any kind of reoccurring scene or object to use a 3D model, just because it's too much of a pain to do it by hand over and over again.
What I used to do is I'd go out and I'd actually shoot a lot of photography of what I wanted to draw. Then I'd import it in and I'd sketch over it.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea.
There's a Japanese show called Manben. It's just like a short documentary series by the guy that did these comics called 20th Century Boys, Pluto. He did Monster. I can never remember his name, but I have the internet, so I can tell you. Naoki Urasawa. But basically, he interviews all these different manga artists, and there's one guy who's like a young whippersnapper that he talks with, who uses all the digital tricks. And what's interesting is, like, the kid is not doing it in any way to make his life necessarily easier. He's just making it possible to do these incredibly complicated things like duplicating. He'll do like 10 drawings and then duplicate them 100 times with rotating and skewing so that it looks like there's just a 1,000 people falling out of a spaceship or something. And like that drawing would take a month to do, but in service of the story he's doing, he's got to find new tricks. And one of the things he does is he photo manipulates. I guess he manipulates the photos that he takes to like end up looking like drawings. But then what he'll do is he'll go the extra step and then actually draw on top of it after he manipulates it to look like a drawing.
Sounds similar to what I'll manipulate to look like a drawing, and then I'll sketch over it.
Yeah, I think
Or
that's
usually ink over it, but yeah. Sorry.
no. Sorry. Okay. I was gonna say that's a really good step. I've started to use more just like the free version of SketchUp to use cars because who enjoys drawing cars? Okay, I'm sure there's a ton of people that enjoy that. It's a natural thing. So I've started using that.
I'm reasonably good at it. No.
But it's really important, I find, that to make sure it doesn't look traced, but that it looks like it came from your style, if that makes sense. So, using the tools when you have them, but making sure it looks like it came from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It match with your style.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's one of the other reasons why I sketch over things, is to make them look like I did it.
Exactly.
My feel to it.
Yeah.
Because I can manipulate a photo, and you can tell it's a photo. But,
Mm-hmm.
but then I go.
It's the art direction pass over everything.
Yeah, basically.
Making sure it all fits into that same art directed world that you've created.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I have to say that recent movie, Into the Spider-Verse, is like heavily influenced how I do perspective stuff now. So
I think that movie inspired everybody.
it was incredible.
Yeah, that was a fun movie.
Love it. So
how has it influenced your perspective?
Well, one of the things, if you look at a lot of the ways they did some of the shots in it, it's not real perspective. Like, if the sequence where he's falling upside and everything's upside down, the entire shot is like on a curve, but it doesn't look that way the way it came out. That's the way they kind of did it. So I'll look at it kind of like that, and the way it kind of skews things, it gives this interesting look to it.
If you want a hyper like stylized perspective, you should check out an artist named Robert Valley.
Oh yeah.
Robert Valley. His stuff is it's really cool, but it's very graphic and it's very warped. And a lot of people have taken influence. I think the newest TMNT, the newest Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles TV show, specifically references his art style as like an influence for the way they're doing backgrounds. So all the buildings will be like, instead of being straight, they'll be like kind of like bent or pushed. It's really interesting.
Oh, they're using German expressionism then.
Sure.
That is a huge in film. That's like a huge thing with German expressionism. If you look at like films like M and there's like Metropolis and even Nosferatu and things like that, the older films, there's a heavy amount of expressionism where they use shadow and these strange like shapes to give this perspective on things.
I remember finding Robert Valley's stuff and really being fascinated with it. And I think it's because it reminded me of who I considered my favorite artist back in the 90s, which was Chris, I don't even know how to pronounce his last name, either Boccolo or Bocello. And he did this comic called Shade the Changing Man. And his perspective would be purposely warped and bent and distorted. And it blew my mind because it's like you could tell he knew perspective really well, but then he couldn't be doing it with rulers because it was just like, it's like, it was just like skewed weird just to kind of influence the mood of the scene. And so that really impacted me and like kind of the way I have thought about it since. And so I like to do good perspective, but I like to do it all hand drawn because of that, you know. And then I think that's why I was attracted to Robert Valley's stuff, is because he kind of takes it to a whole nother level, just really distorting things. So yeah, good references.
It's amazing how I'm finding you can really change the emotion of the scene with perspective. You know, even
Yeah.
if you want, and you don't necessarily need like crazy camera angles for every scene. So, for instance,
No.
Freeze! No.
I know.
Locked up that time.
Did I freeze?
It was you locking up.
A little bit.
Okay, now you're not freezed.
Yeah,
Okay, I was wondering why everyone was freaking out all of a sudden. I was talking about art.
Help.
All right, so just talking about like different camera angles. You know, if you have just a simple camera angle on two people talking, you really have a stable emotion in that panel. But if you have maybe different angles, or like you say, skewing the perspective and warping things, it kind of brings in this. It changes the emotion, you know, what the reader is taking in. So it's really fascinating, and asking yourself, okay, like, do I really want sort of an intense, you know, dynamic scene, or do I just want something kind of stable or bland? You know, like what, you know, it's amazing how even that can feed into the what you get out of a scene.
Yeah, totally. Or even stripping all the perspective out of stuff, you know?
Yeah.
Having it be an unnaturally fake perspective, like an overhead view where it's just like all the lines are parallel to each other. But even in that, you can distort it, you know?
Yeah.
There's so many fun tricks to do.
And I'm sure you're doing a lot of that in Shapes, seeing your process. So that's really fun and interesting to play with.
I don't know how. I haven't had a lot of room to really do experimental big panels. So it's been so much more like dense character type moments. But as the issues go, I'm able to kind of experiment, like bring back in more. I've given myself a little more breathing room in the later chapters. So I'm wrapping up the coloring for issue 2 right now, and so I kind of forget exactly how much I wrote into the next issue, but I'm really hoping it can have a lot of breathing room. I'm ready for that breathing room finally. I want to have some big full pages, you know, double page spreads.
Have you made Jason the cover for Phobos 2?
I haven't. It's so frustrating. I need to. I had this whole plan, you know, after our last live stream, and then I was going to finish up drawing issue 2 of Shapes, and then work on Phobos, and then start drawing issue 3 before I start working on the colors of issue 2. But then the company wanted me to finish issue 1 and 2, and then work on their covers, and so I was like, my plan, you know, my blocking things into groups is ruined. And so I've been in this, just jumped into coloring, and so I finished up coloring for issue 1. I took like a couple days off, and then I started working on coloring for issue 2, and it's just been where my brain's at. I'm just trying to get through it. I was hoping to get it done in April, but I still have a little bit to go. So I don't know exactly how I'll do it, because they want me to deliver it, and then they want the covers for issue 1 and 2 finished. So I think I'll do the cover of Phobos 2 when I'm working on those covers as well, just so that I'm in that kind of that same world. So yeah, I need to figure that out though, because I do want to get that off to the printer soon. So I'll probably end up sending an order form today, though, just so that you guys can all lock in your orders this month, and then shut it down after that. And then but it might be a little delayed in getting to the printer. So, which is sad. It's so frustrating.
But
I just
that's
want to work on, it's like, but the problem is, even if you have as much time as you want, you still don't get to work on everything you want to work on all the time, because there's
Absolutely.
you jump around on everything, and so
that's the world of independent artists, or probably most artists or creators, is you really have to roll with the punches and learn to adjust.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
frustrating, but that's part of the
Yeah.
job.
And back in the day when I was in my 20s, I would have been like, okay, well, I'm gonna just, I'll work on this, and then I'll spend more time at night working on this. But nowadays, I really need to just stop, and I can only put in so much time, and then I need to unplug, and so I need to do something else, and so now I have to just accept, okay, things just can get pushed back. It's okay, like I have buddies like Nick helping me on Cithra, so things are getting done. I don't have to stress about it. It just means certain things are delayed, but part of the problem is, I don't start on a project unless it's like an epic thing. And then the problem with that is you have to spend 100 million hours working on this epic thing to get it finished. And, there's a whole pile of stages in between that, between starting it and finishing it. So anyway, my mind's just rambling now, but yeah.
I know that feeling. With my webcomic that I work on, I basically work on it for like a week. Then I go and do other things I have to do for like a week.
Yeah.
And sometime in there, I have to do commissions. So
yeah. Yeah. See, I've kind of cut I would say I've cut out like freelance work, except this project I'm working on is 100% freelance. But, again, it's like, it's only because they let me write it and do everything. So I still feel like it's mine. But yeah, I had to just kind of cut out anything like little, like someone wants a logo, my wife is great at like lining up people for me that want something from me. Like her coworker needs a logo for their winery or something. I'm just like, I'm sorry, I can't do it. I know it would only take me 10 minutes to do it if my mind was into it, but it's another thing that's on the list. There's too many things on the list already, let alone just doing laundry or whatever. And so, I just kind of have to say no to absolutely everything, because there's too many big projects that are important. It's that kind of like that video I made, urgent versus important,
Yeah.
and the little things fall into the urgent categories. But the important things that I really feel like are important for me to get done are these big things, it's the big, it's finishing Cithra, it's finishing Phobos. It's it's weird. I'm actually paying a ghostwriter to write a horror story. Why? I don't know. I just, it's like, it came like several months ago. I had this idea, and I kept working on it at night. Like I don't want to be a horror writer, but I had this idea, and I was like, I need to write this, and so I just started working on it. I showed it to my wife, and she's like, that's awful, but I understand. And but then it got to a point where I was just kind of obsessing too much over it, and I was like, I got to get this out of my brain. And so I scoured Fiverr for ghostwriters and stuff, and a couple people were like, no, I don't want to do it, and some buddy was like, yeah, but I don't have time yet. I'm working on another story. And so I ended up finding someone to work on it. And I was really skeptical if it would work out, if they'd get the tone and stuff, or if it's even worth it. Like, should I even do this thing? But I just unloaded it because, now I have headspace, now I can finally work on shapes, this thing I'm actually getting paid to do. And I have to get it done. But I know that that's being done too. And then every month or so, they send me a couple chapters, and then I just have to. I spent this weekend reading the chapters that they wrote and gave them notes, and now it's off into their hands again. And I feel like that's been such a freeing thing that I've been doing a lot of recently this year is kind of outsourcing things, from everything from helping with the colors of shapes. Like my friend here, Adrian, is doing most of the heavy lifting on that. And Nick helping out with getting Cithra ready for print, getting all the wording and word balloons and stuff ready. And then outsourcing writing, like there's just so many things that you just want to do, but they're all massive. And that's the problem. Everything's big. So if I were to focus on the writing, I was okay, I would have to spend 3 months working on it, full time. If I want to just focus on shapes, okay, I got to spend 6 months working on it. If I want to focus on, getting Cithra done, that would be a month or two full time of working on that, So how do you do it? How do you juggle all these things? So anyway, that's been really rewarding and kind of exciting to finally, I feel like it's a hurdle that I've been trying to jump for all my life, but never was able to let go of anything. And now that I have, I feel like, okay, I can see everything's getting done simultaneously. And so it's nice, Sorry, I didn't mean to just start talking, but there you go.
Yeah.
10 minutes of talking.
It's cool.
What is this? Nobody.
It's hard. I mean, you really, who am I to speak? Because I don't even have a full comic yet, but finding over the last decade of just working on projects, and it's like, you gotta prioritize what's the most important, what would you be devastated if you couldn't do that project? So, and yet trying to find the sustainability for a long-term project. I mean, we all know creating something takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of physical energy, emotional energy. And so, and as I'm looking forward into my graphic novel, I'm kind of like, okay, how am I going to make this sustainable where I don't burn out? And it might involve taking some breaks to do some other art. Maybe if if there's another piece of art I can make, maybe go back to watercolors, do a little piece just to help refresh, recharge after I block one. And it's hard. It's hard. And now my little nephews and nieces are old enough where I've been writing, because I also do children's book stuff. So I've been every time I visit, I've been drawing little character for them, and now they're all on board and they love that. And I'm kind of going, I'm working on my graphic novel right now. I'm not doing children's books. So what do I do? But and instead my compromise to myself is well, instead of stopping everything to do a children's book, I could do a quick little short story for them, just staple some computer paper together and just draw it out for them and still be able to engage in that, refresh myself when I need a break, but not derail myself from my main project. My graphic part. So, and everything else is really back burner. So it's weird. I always thought that once I started doing this full time, it would solve my problems because I'd be able to just come in and work on everything full time and it would get done. The problem is now I'm full time thinking up new ideas and full time being inspired with new things and full time going, I want to do this and that and this and that, And so I have 5 ongoing projects that are massive now that I wouldn't have if I just had a full time job and came home and worked on that one project. And so it's the same thing, even if you have all the time in the world, you still don't have enough time. It's really strange.
Everyone is plagued with ideas.
True.
Most people are not struggling with, I'm doing 10 things, but I want to do 11. Most people are struggling with, I have 10 things I want to do, and I'm not doing any of them. And so the unfortunate answer to, I have all these things I want to do, how do I do them all, is you can't. But you, instead of thinking about doing 10 things, you can do one.
Yeah. Yeah. Or you could do like, I mean, I feel like I'm kind of in a fortunate situation because of the money that I'm getting from Cave. That's why I'm able to like try out, like, let me have a ghostwriter work on this other thing that I want to do just as bad, but I don't think I should focus my time on it. I've developed it, but I don't think I should put in the 3 months to do it myself.
For sure.
You know?
I guess what I was meaning is I think the layman is like paralyzed by, they start something and then they think, but I have something else I want to do. And so they stop that thing and move to the next thing. And then they keep shuffling and never finishing.
I totally agree. I think that's a real common thing. And I think it's one of my problems too. I think it's a natural problem that I have is jumping back and forth too much. Even Chelly, like she went on a break. Hey Joshua, how you doing?
Fine, good.
Good. Well,
good to be here.
Oh, thanks for coming. We're probably going to wrap up real soon, but so Chelly went to LA for her grandma's birthday party, her 90th birthday party, and then she was gone for another thing for work, like some training. So she was gone for about a week. And when she came back, I was telling her all the new things that I was working on at night. Like I started working on music and I started doing this, I started doing that. And she's like, wow, you're just like all over the place. Like every moment, like you start a whole new thing. Like what? Okay. So anyway, yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting.
See, that's why
it's exciting. It's fun to just be able to just make stuff, like to me, I think that's the thing. It's like, I think that's what we're all drawn to is creating stuff. It doesn't have to be comics or graphic novels or stories or anything or movies or animation. It's like just making stuff and like thinking up ideas and creating them I really think it's what we're made to do. I think that's what makes humans so unique. You don't see squirrels like making works of art. And so, it's like, I think that's our attribute that is just like, that's for us to do. And it's sad when people can't engage in that because they're too caught up in just survival and stuff, which I know everyone's at different phases. So, but yeah, making stuff, making stuff, anything. So good.
Absolutely. Right now, I have a lot of things to do, but I have a very clear, prioritized list of things that and time that I have to spend on every subject, because I'm freelancing, doing animation a lot, the most, but I have time for everything. On the mornings, I spend an hour and a half writing for the comic. I stop. I'm working for freelance work, making video lyrics, whatever. And I'm doing a game and a point and click adventure game too. So
wow,
really, and I don't want to stress, so I put a limit of time, but I do it every day.
Yeah,
every single day.
That's amazing, man. That's amazing. You can jump from thing to thing.
I'm very German in this case.
I was thinking that because my friend Daniel Liske is kind of the same way. He really can just map things out. He does the Wormworld project, the Wormworld saga, and it seems like he can just map things out and just be like, boom, I just do this. And I'm like, how do you do it?
I think it's because I start working very early. I'm on my 15 years old, so I'm 30. I'm 39 right now, and I have 23 years working on different matters: musician, designer, marketing strategies, whatever. And I have a very clear workload of things. So I think that you have to finish things. You told it in a video. So I don't know. And Jake Packer has another video that says,
Finish, not perfect.
yeah,
Product
finish not perfect.
Yeah.
And
Tell me about it.
I think I need to print it because always you have the head and
I
Yeah.
repeat it in
You
my
forget
head.
it.
You still
I
not
need-
finished.
I need to put it like a poster, a giant poster.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I think this is really the most important thing for doing things. Finishing.
Yeah. I totally agree. Just getting things done so that people can actually,
Yeah.
see it,
Yeah.
and then it also allows your brain to be like, get your brain starts getting used to like being like I did something, if you never finish something, your brain is like, I
Yeah.
never finish anything. I'm a failure.
Yeah.
I might as well not start on something new because it'll be another project that I'll never get done, but if you just like finish things and get into the habit of,
It's like sex when you finish. It's like sex.
yeah,
It's the same. You finish it.
don't you
Oh my
think-
God.
This is a question for anyone really. Do you feel though that pushing the mentality of finishing imperfectly can also push the idea of not striving for excellence?
Yeah, I think there's a degree in that. I think Webtoons is a good example of that mentality, which I don't agree with. If I were to give people advice, it'd be like, don't rush through it and just jam stuff out just to hit a deadline, especially on your personal stuff.
Yeah.
But I think the whole statement of finish not perfect is more about like, you can't be such a perfectionist that you never actually let it go.
Yeah.
There's a point when you just need to commit something and be done with it and say, this is as good as I could do at this phase in my life, and it's done. You could keep reworking that story until you're 90 and it may never be better, because really we get better by finishing more things. I think by doing stuff, we get better at doing it. And so in order to get good at writing a complete story, you have to keep writing complete stories, And so, yeah, I'm really against just slopping something out and being like, it's good enough. But I really want it to be something that inspires me when I see it, or something that when I'm done with that piece of art, I'm like, yes, I want to show this to people. And if I'm like, I guess that works, then it just turns into a freelance job, and you're just doing it the bare minimum just to get the paycheck. And that really doesn't work for personal projects. It really doesn't work for inspiring people. It works for the paycheck, which is what a lot of people that are being featured on Webtoons, where they get that money, they get paid by Webtoons. They've kind of switched over to doing it for the paycheck. And I don't like that. And that's why I've avoided at all costs, like going back to Webtoons. Yeah, I could get a paycheck, but I don't want to like dumb down my stuff anymore. Sithra was hard because I wanted to keep that level of quality, even though I was going fast. And I had to cut a lot of corners, and like Nick's helping me fix all those corners that I cut right now. He's doing one, he's going through all the words and helping make them look the way they should have looked. And and then I need to go through it again and just tie down the colors just a little bit better. And there's some pages that Adrian, my assistant, colored completely, and I was like, that's good enough. But it's not good enough for print. It's not good enough to be the final thing. But as soon as it goes to that final project, yeah, there's that final print run. Sure, there's going to be mistakes in it, but it's going to be good enough, at that phase. It's going to be, everything's going to make me go, yes, I love how that turned out, and I'm going to be happy with it out in the world. If I went to print exactly as it is right now, or before Nick started working on it, then no, that would have been a failure. all that work put into that story and those pages, and then it's just like, we'll just whatever.
Enough to be proud.
Yeah. Read the first 4 volumes, guys, but after that, don't worry about it because so
work on everything you want till you be proud.
Yeah. I kind of my rule of thumb is I work on a piece of art or a page until it stops bothering me. Like if you can look at it and nothing stands out and makes you go ew, then it's pretty good. Or if I guess it has to have that wow factor. It can't just be like, yeah, that's good enough. It needs to have a wow factor, and it needs to not bother me anymore. So if I'm clicking through the pages when I'm done and I open it up, I'm like, ooh, there's that green just keeps annoying me. I'll open it back up and play with it a little bit more. Or, wow, that was really a sloppy lighting job right there. Maybe I better spend a little more time cleaning that up because I keep seeing it every time I look at that page.
How often do you rework your page layouts, or is it kind of like when you do it, it's set in stone? Those are the camera angles I'm going to use. Those are the panels I'm going to go with.
Well, usually when I kind of get the thumbnails to a point where I like them, they're pretty set in stone. It's only in rare situations when I've like finished it and I've put words into it and then I read through it and I'm just like, this doesn't make sense, or it's not clear, and then I might have to go in there. I remember in Remind there was a couple situations where I had to add another spread, or I had to just completely change a page, just because it just didn't work. Like my thumbnails just didn't follow through the way I thought they would. They didn't have that impact that I thought they would. And so it just kept bothering me. And so finally it's like, one day it clicked. I was like, oh yeah, I could do it like this. And so I just threw it all out, that one page, and redid it with something else. And usually it's more simple when I do that. It's a really simple scene, but it's just really clear. It just does what it needs to do. And try to make it as not beautiful of a work of art as I can,
You think that clarity and framing and storytelling came from your years in storyboarding then?
Yeah, well, there's part of it that was from, storyboarding really helped me just learn what actually told a story and what didn't, because at first I would always be kind of like, is this a good way to introduce a character? I just don't know. I remember when I was first trying to draw comics, I'd be like, what would like Todd McFarlane do? How would he introduce a character here? I don't know, And then in storyboards, I worked with hundreds of directors because it would be like a commercial with this director one day and a commercial with this director another day. And then I realized they all had different ways of doing it, but also, so not only was there a huge way of doing things, the same thing, you kind of saw the common denominators in it all too. Like, in order to introduce a character, it's probably best to do this, and this didn't work, So I think that more than anything, that just helped me in storytelling, not necessarily composition. I think composition, I learned more of that. I think I always kind of was fascinated with composition. So I think I was really obsessed with that earlier before storyboards. Mm-hmm. And then at DreamWorks, there was a lot of composition type art and stuff that they focused on too. So that was a real, like, testing my composition skills and flexing those muscles. But yeah, because I love good compositions in comics, I'm not saying I'm the master at it. There's other people that are way better, and for me, it's like really difficult to pull those good compositions out. I have to really work at it, So, but yeah, storyboarding really helped with just telling stories. Like, how from panel to panel do you make it clear what the action is happening, and that clarity with as few panels as possible is nice. You know, it's good learning lesson, a good lesson to learn on the job training. So, well, anyway, guys, it's 11 o'clock here, so we've been going a little while. So I'm gonna have to cut out and get some coloring done. I got to pull my hair out doing some coloring.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Before we finish, for Allison, she mentioned that she have a webcomic. What's the name?
It's called Books of Shadow on Webtoons.
I'll check
Books
it
of
out.
Shadow.
Mm.
Yeah. All right.
Chapter up because I'm taking my time doing the second chapter.
Hey, Patrick ran, but he wrote this little comment in the comments. He says, "Perfect doesn't exist. Excellence comes with practice." So I think that's a good note to end it on. Well, thanks, you guys. I appreciate you showing up and appreciate your support. And I'll try to send out an update for Shapes today. I'll send out an order form for Phobos 2 as well, so that you guys can request a copy, a physical copy. And then don't expect me to send it off to the printer early next month because I still need to work on that cover. Which as soon as I do, I'll show it to you guys too. I'll post it on Patreon. And
it can be the same cover as Phobos 1, but with just a different perspective.
Yeah, it's just slightly to the side. You know, that was my biggest pet peeve. Okay, there's a couple pet peeves. Sorry, I keep going. There's a couple pet peeves in drawing storyboards. One of them was drawing a room of people dancing. That was the worst ever, and I always had to do that. And then the other one was like, I drew this beautiful, like, and it's a storyboard, okay? It's just it's drawing, you know, it's a sketch. It's not like finished, but I drew all this perspective and people and characters and cars, and they're like, "Can you move the camera like 3 feet to the left?" I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" So anyway, those are my pet peeves.
You get that from non-art people though. Like it happened to me at work where it's like they said, "Oh, we like the shot, but could it be from like a lower angle?" It's like it can't be because it's a drawing. Like, like, I could redraw it. That'd be fine.
And they're like, "It's all right. You're getting paid for it." And I'm like, "You don't get it. You're just ruining. You're just destroying the whole." Okay, so yeah. Anything else? Anything else that I'm forgetting? Is there?
I have a quick question about the Phobos Volume 2.
Yeah.
Is there a way I could get a digital copy? I actually have issues turning physical pages.
Okay. You can see it on the Phobos website. If you dig back through my Patreon posts, I sent the last link I sent gave you access to everything that I'd finished. So does that work, or are you talking about more like a PDF?
It's like a PDF.
I didn't plan on making a PDF. I might at a later date. I just wanted to be real careful with not putting it out there online in a way that was easy to turn it into a book yet, because what I want to do is collect all these volumes and get like 500 pages into and do like a Kickstarter eventually. So maybe at that phase I'll have a PDF version of it. I'm not sure yet.
Okay.
But right now, yeah, the only version online is that the kind of the Webtoons-ish scrolling one. So sorry. But now that you mention it, I will be thinking about it. So it might happen. So I'll send you guys an order form. Just all you got to do is fill it out once with, everything. And then when I get it all ready for the printer, I'll send all that information to the printer. They'll print it and send it to you. So, and because you guys were supporters in April, that was the month that was critical. So,
yeah.
So hopefully that's clear. All righty. Well, thanks again, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll see you guys next time.
Have a good one.